It's Risto Stefov, that's my official name, but I'm also called Risto Stefov. The reason I call myself Risto Stefov, that's my Macedonian name. Chris or Risto Stefov was what the Greeks named us. So rather than hanging on to my Greek name, I decided to change it to Risto Stefov. And that's how I'm known by the Macedonian community here. I was born in 1953 in a village called Ошчима in Ilinden region, now Greece. And we came here, my dad came here in 1965, established himself, and he brought the family in 1966. And for many years, I've listened to Macedonians discussing politics, discussing history. And I suppose years later, all that information got collected in my head and had to come out somehow. And the way things are in Canada, we're far apart. It's very difficult to get together and discuss these things. My most available thing to me was writing. And with the advent of the internet, it was easy to distribute the information. So I started by writing this book here, which was for my village association. Every 25 or so years, we compile a book. This was the book for the 100th year. What I decided to do when I was writing this book is distribute the articles for everybody to read. And once that started, there was more demand. I was asked by people to write more, if I could write something about Macedonia's history, like from ancient times. And this is what I came up with, this book. Okay, this book starts from prehistoric times to about 1950. Now a lot of people bought this book and read it, they were happy with it, but there were too many names of cities, of places, and some people want to know where they are. So I came up with this book just to solve that problem. This book is a shorter history, again a condensed history of Macedonia, but it's also illustrated. There are over 50 maps here. There are coins, there are photographs of our revolutionaries and various sort of things. It also has index, and it can be used as a research book. Of course, there was demand also to give away some of these books, so I came up with another book that's called A Short History of Macedonia, which is the Macedonian people, which is 200 pages, but they're all sold out. I don't have any of those. But again, as an offshoot, from having contact with Macedonians, demand for information, I came up with 3 other books, one of which was this. There was a talk, that was the time when we were thinking of the 100 years of Macedonia, and the idea was that perhaps after 100 years, the Treaty of Bucharest, the 1913 Treaty of Bucharest, would expire. Okay, so which inspired me to write this book. Of course, we know it doesn't expire, but it doesn't stop us from bringing up the issue and making the Macedonian people and the world aware of what's happening to Macedonia and what's happening to the Macedonian people. And here I have, this is an analysis that analyzes basically who the ancient people were, their differences, who the modern people are, their similarities and differences, and so on. Now, I've got a lot of flack from the Greeks. The Greeks have this idea that they're perfect. Okay, they're a perfect society, homogeneous, and we're a bunch of hodgepodge people, like all kinds of people mixed together, which is not true. Okay, we are a hodgepodge of people, so are the Greeks. Okay, so the whole idea was to bring this battle to the Greeks. For 30 or so years of my life, we have been on the defensive. The Greeks are saying, oh, there's no such thing as a Macedonia. What are you? No such thing as a Macedonia. Okay? Well, the way I see it, history of the Balkan people is the same or very similar. So if there's no such thing as a Macedonian, then there's no such thing as a Greek. Okay? If you use, for example, this criteria to create a nation called Greeks, okay, and you use this criteria to create the same criteria to create a nation called Macedonians, then yes, there are Macedonians. But if the Greeks insist that there are no Macedonians, we have to insist that there are no Greeks. Okay? And there are a lot of lies in the way the Greek history was created. So this is the result. This book is the result, a response, a way of taking the battle to the Greeks and saying, excuse me, you are the people that are lying, not us. Okay? We have a language. Okay? The language we have is not imposed on us. Okay? The Greek language is a language that's imposed on the Greeks. I have 20 lies in there that I've written. This book began more or less as a joke. Okay, a friend of mine and I got together. We said, well, why don't we do this and see what comes out? Okay, but the Greeks did not take it as a joke. They took it very seriously. There's a lot of talk about that. And as far as I'm concerned, it answers the question. After writing the book, I wrote this book. Now, there's another thing that's happening nowadays. It's more in the academic world than it is with the general public. A lot of academics are trying to allow the languages to survive, to preserve the old languages. Okay? In the 19th century, early 20th century, people were looking down at dialects and saying, oh, that's a farmer's language, that's a peasant's language. Okay, we need literary languages and so on and so forth. Literary languages are great because what they do is they standardize the language for everybody. But the literary language has no roots. It's an artificial creation. The dialects have a root. Languages, dialect is a natural evolution of a language. Okay, so as a result of that type of thinking, I came up with the idea of preserving my own dialect. And as far as I could remember the words on my own, and I had some help from other people, I wrote this book, Preserve the Language. Okay, this one here, this was something Michael Serafinov wanted, but he's not a historian. So he and I paired up together to write this book. This book was supposed to be the answer to the foreigner, not to the Macedonian, to the Western foreigner, to the English-speaking foreigner. Unfortunately, he couldn't get it published anyway. Okay, so, which means that there are problems, not just with Greece, but with the entire Western world. Because he tried very hard to get it published, it just didn't work. Now I'm working, I can tell you a little bit more, I'm working on a couple of more books. One book I finished, and that particular one was donated to the Grigor Perlichev group in Australia. Their idea was to publish a book, like Short History of Macedonia, and donate it to the children so they can learn Macedonian history. So I compiled a book. It's 300 pages long. About 100 of those pages are illustrations, maps, photographs, and so on and so forth. It's designed to be a research book for children. So they'll have 1,000 books printed, and they'll donate them. I assume worldwide, at least in Australia. So another 2 books I'm working on. I started writing a book about the struggle of Macedonian people. There is this idea originating from the Greeks that there are no Macedonians. How can there be a struggle? However, we have been struggling since the Roman Wars, and we successfully created a state under Samuel, and now we're successfully created another state. We almost created a state in 1945, but it was part of it wasn't totally independent. It was part of the Federal Yugoslavia. So I was hoping to have that finished this year, but it's too much of an undertaking. I'll have it finished next year. So So that's the struggle of Macedonian people. When I started researching for that, I found that there was a lack of information about the Macedonians in Greece. But I managed to find some sources, but they were mostly Macedonian sources. And these sources were from the actual fighters that fought in the Greek Civil War. So what I decided to do is, in order to highlight the Macedonian struggle in Greece, I decided to write a separate book. So there'll be another book coming out sometime next year that's called The Macedonians in Greece, 1939 to 1949.